Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how I can guarantee you that Donald Trump would flip at least 5 key competitive battleground or swing states in the 2024 presidential election versus Vice President Kamala Harris, and which exact swing states can he flip and why he will flip those states. But before we get started, make sure you guys are subscribed, click the bell so you don't miss any of my content, press like button, share this video. Don't forget we do have memberships. You can find links to that in the description section if you are interested. Now back to the topic of today's video. So the states filled in gray are the quote-unquote swing states, and I am using quotations because they are not really competitive at all. They are more than likely certain to go to Kamala Harris, but for some reason they're still called battleground states, and I don't know why. For example, Colorado is considered a swing state, but it's really not, and same thing goes for Virginia, I would say. So those are filled in gray, but the states filled in yellow are the swing states I think Donald Trump will flip, and there are 5 of them in this election. Those are Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and I'll get to them later. But first of all, let's get over the swing states I think Trump will not flip and why he won't flip them. Starting off with Colorado, this state I think is the bluest out of all of the states remaining in gray, because first of all, Biden won this state by around 13 points back in the 2020 election. I understand it was a more favorable year for Democrats, but still the state's getting bluer. Democrats keep gaining in terms of new voters. I do expect Harris to surpass double digits in the state, just like Biden did in 2020. So I think she would get about 10 percentage points, and I do think the Tim Walz impact as her VP really can help her in the state of Colorado especially. And I also do think that New Mexico is also going to go to her by a likely margin, slightly more competitive, slightly more closer than a state like Colorado. I do think Colorado would vote to the left of a state like New Mexico, typically because I do think the Hispanic vote can do better for Donald Trump. I do think he can improve among that group. But still, I expect Harris to win by probably around 7 to 10 percentage points, somewhere in between that margin pretty comfortably. I just think Albuquerque, obviously a Democratic stronghold county, a lot of white liberals. I do think that's hard for Trump to overcome the votes in there. And then as for Minnesota, obviously that's going to comfortably go to Harris by a likely margin. I think by about 8 percentage points on election day, this state would be called for Kamala Harris. Obviously, you have the home state advantage electorally. Tim Walz would help her out significantly. Also, Minneapolis, the suburbs here, especially the women vote, are really shifting and trending towards the left in favor of Democrats. And then obviously, you have Virginia. I do think that this would probably be one of the more closer states that I do have filled in blue. I think at the end of the day, Kamala only wins Virginia by probably around 3 to 4 percentage points, a lean margin. Obviously, you have the governor, Glenn Youngkin, who's very unpopular, who actually endorsed Donald Trump for president. So I think that can already sway the race in favor of him. Also, Glenn Youngkin is trying to have paper ballots mandated only on election day, which would really go to Donald Trump's benefit ultimately at the end of the day. And then you have New Hampshire. The reason why I think this state will not be close is because it has a lot of college-educated voters, and I think Tim Walz, he really focuses on education a lot as governor, and I think that can really help Kamala Harris, and she is performing better in New Hampshire than any other swing state, and same with Joe Biden, so I don't think this is going to be competitive. And also Donald Trump is refusing to campaign at all in New Hampshire, and he thinks it's not in play, so therefore I think New Hampshire will be likely for her by probably 6 percentage points on election day, which is why I don't think Trump is going to flip it. It's not going to be really close. It may get somewhat close, but still not going to be enough for Trump to overcome the votes in there. And then you have Michigan. I do think this is flippable for Donald Trump. At this point, I would characterize it tilt for Kamala Harris. I do think she wins it by a margin within 0 to 1 percentage points, maybe even less than 1%. It's going to be extremely close, but I do think she will be the narrow victor at the end of the day. And the main reason why is because Michigan was the bluest Rust Belt state of the 3 in 2020. It voted to the left of both Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. And I believe Michigan was the bluest Rust Belt state in 2016 and with the Obama era as well. So also Detroit and the suburbs are really trending towards left, similar to Minnesota, especially with the women vote. I think that could really turn out for Kamala Harris. And Biden nearly won this state by like 3 points just 4 years ago. So, and with the endorsement of Gretchen Whitmer backing Kamala Harris, Gretchen Whitmer, the governor here, is very popular. And I think, honestly, at this point, Kamala Harris has the slight advantage. She is favored in the state of Michigan. Should probably win it by 1 percentage point. And now we get to the important stuff, the 5 key battleground states, importantly, that I think Trump will be able to flip, and I can guarantee you he will flip these 5 competitive swing or battleground states filled in yellow on your screen right now. Obviously, we have the tipping point state or the deciding factor, Pennsylvania, which is probably most likely whoever wins Pennsylvania would win the election, as we all know. We'll get to that lastly, but let's start off with Nevada. The main reason why I have Donald Trump flipping this state is because obviously you take a look at trends in terms of demographics, the state is getting redder. They just elected Republican governor in the 2022 midterms. I believe his name is Lombardo. And with that being said, this state is Republicans are gaining tremendously in terms of new registered voters on their side that they did not have in the 2020 election. And considering that Joe Biden just 4 years ago did not improve on Hillary Clinton's margin in this state, I believe Hillary Clinton and Biden got around the same amount. So when you saw Georgia have a 6-point shift, a 6-point swing to the left, and then you have Arizona roughly a 3-point shift towards the left in 2020. Meanwhile, you have Nevada, in which it did not see any shift to the left in a more favorable year for Joe Biden. And I know this is Kamala Harris, but things are much, much different. We still have the same candidate, Donald Trump. I still do think this time around Trump is going to flip Nevada. I think he can flip Washoe County, and if he does that, he's probably going to win the state, as well as have high turnout. Run up the numbers in Clark County, the Vegas area, among Hispanic voters as well. I think that's key to his victory, and I think he can do exactly that. So therefore, Trump's going to win Nevada by around a couple percentage points, 2% if I had to make an estimated margin guess. So I do think he will flip that state for those reasons. I understand the polls in 538 suggesting that Harris is the slight favorite, but one thing to keep in mind is that people typically say that polls in Nevada typically overestimate Republican chances, and that meanwhile that may be true, but that's only for the midterms, the Senate, and the governorship. Yes, polls out of Nevada do overestimate Republicans in the Senate especially, but in terms of the general election, you actually take a look at 2020, in which Donald Trump surprisingly was actually underestimated in this state by a couple percentage points. The polling averages right before election day had Biden up by 4 points on 538 in this state, I believe, if you go back to the 2020 polls in the state of Nevada. He ended up winning it relatively by just 2 percentage points. That's a polling error of a couple percent. And when you apply that right now, Trump realistically is actually the favorite in the state of Nevada. And then as for Arizona, as of right now, Kamala Harris is winning the state by around 1 percentage point according to 538. And I believe the polls are going to be absolutely wrong in this election. They overestimated Joe Biden in 2020. They overestimated Hillary Clinton in 2016. And what makes you think they won't overestimate the Democrat again in this election? Because if Trump was underestimated on 538, both in 2016 and in 2020, all of a sudden people think he's not going to be underestimated once again. That would make absolutely no sense. The polls always overestimate Democrats running against Donald Trump on the general election, and people still run away from the fact that he's going to be underestimated once again. I can guarantee you he will. And Biden only had won this state by 0.2 percentage points, around roughly 11,000 votes, mainly because of Maricopa County. He flipped it. He won Maricopa by 2 percentage points. And yes, the entirety of the state truly comes down to Maricopa County. Now, there is a realistic scenario in which Harris still wins Maricopa, but she still loses the state. And that's only if she wins Maricopa by under 1 percentage points, because yes, Biden won it by 2, but he still only won this state by 0.2% overall as a whole. And she can still win Maricopa, as an example, by like 1%, and she still will wind up losing this state. And so therefore, I do think Trump is going to win Arizona by probably 1 percentage points. At tilt margin, it's going to be very close because I want to be honest, the state is getting bluer. Democrats keep gaining tremendously in the 2022 midterms. They elected Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs for the first time since I believe 2009. Also statewide, you take a look at the Senate in Arizona, the Democratic senator. So don't be surprised in the future if Arizona keeps electing Democrats up and down the ballot consistently, nonstop. Yes, the state is getting bluer. And so with that being said, I would not be shocked if it's extremely close, because it's going to be close. But I do think Trump will be the narrow favorite because of immigration and the border crisis. That is the main reason why Kamala cannot address the issue of immigration at all. She just can't do it. And that's it's a losing issue for her. And the fact that she struggles on immigration so much because she was literally appointed to deal with that, and she has done nothing to do so. And I do think that's not going to go well for her. And the polls when Biden was in the race had Donald Trump on average on 538, not on RCP or some other source, but on 538. Trump was winning Arizona on average, both with RFK included and not included with third parties, by 5 to 6 points by a likely margin. And ever since Harris stepped into the race, they think there's going to be a 6-point shift towards the left because Biden dropped out. They think it's going to be a huge impact. And yes, it is true Kamala Harris is an improvement according to the polls, but I don't think it's going to be a 6-point improvement. Because when Biden was still in the race, Trump had a 6-point advantage in the state of Arizona according to 538. Now Harris has it by 1%. I just don't believe a 6 to 7 point shift because Kamala Harris is replacing Biden in the state of Arizona. I just don't buy that. And so I think Trump's going to win it by a toe margin. It's going to be close no matter what, obviously. And then as for Georgia, the main reason why Biden flipped his state for the first time for any Democrat since I believe Bill Clinton by a margin of 0.2%, roughly 10,000 votes, was because he got high turnout among African American voters. Skyrocket turnout in Atlanta, the metropolitan area, the suburbs especially. I think the entirety of this election really comes down to the suburbs, not the rural areas, not the urban areas, but specifically the suburbs. That's what's going to decide this election. And the women vote really can carry Kamala Harris to a victory. Maybe she can somewhat surpass 270 electoral votes. But Georgia was the closest state in 2020, which is why it's going to go to Donald Trump more than likely than not. And also, Brian Kemp, Georgia lawmakers are trying to pass election day laws in which all absentee ballots have to be submitted by 8 p.m. and won't be accepted any later. That means the state will be called faster. Also, it would really go to Donald Trump's benefit, similar to Virginia, in which Glenn Youngkin is trying to mandate paper ballot on election day only. And if that really works out for Donald Trump, I think he's going to have the advantage in the state of Georgia. And I won't be surprised if she does win this state, if she does have that high turnout in Atlanta. But I just don't think that's going to happen. Democrats were way more favored in 2020, and they're less favorable now. And the thing that people don't understand and they don't get is that Kamala Harris is polling worse than Hillary Clinton did and Joe Biden. And Donald Trump was severely underestimated. So what makes you think Kamala Harris is has the advantage or is favored right now? Because she clearly is not. Realistically, forget the polls. They're going to be wrong. And honestly, I think Trump's going to flip 5 swing states. And when Biden was in this race, he was winning literally every single battleground state. And all of a sudden, they want to tell you that Kamala Harris is so much better than Joe Biden to the point where she erased Donald Trump's lead in every single swing state. I just don't believe that. And then as for Wisconsin, I do think Trump would flip the state as well. It's going to come down to those 20,000 voters that Biden had originally won this state by. If Trump flips 20,000, then yes, he's going to win the state, obviously. It's a margin of 0.6%, which, by the way, Trump won Wisconsin by more of a margin than Biden did in 2020. Also, another reason why I have Trump flipping this state is because Wisconsin was the reddest Rust Belt state of the 3 in 2020, 2016, and the Obama era as well. Wisconsin voted to the right of both Michigan and Pennsylvania. So it makes you think that she can win the state again. If she does, it's probably because Tim Walz will carry her over. That's basically the only reason why. But the fact that it was the closest Rust Belt state of the 3 in 2020, and it voted, obviously, furthest to the right in 2016, that's why Donald Trump is probably going to win the state. And the main reason why Biden won the state was because of Milwaukee. Milwaukee County was the only reason why Biden won the state. And if Trump flips Door County, then I think he's more than likely going to flip Wisconsin. 2024, it's going to come down to the hardworking class, the white college-educated voters especially. And I just don't think Kamala Harris can do well with that specifically. And as for Pennsylvania, I do think that Trump is going to flip the state. Because according to the polls, especially on 538, they suggest that Pennsylvania is going to vote, surprisingly, to the right of Wisconsin in this election, which I just don't understand at all. If you take a look at 538 at this current moment, Pennsylvania is the closest state. It is closer than Wisconsin. Wisconsin is to the left of Pennsylvania on 538, which is exactly why I think the polls are bad. Another reason why I think the reason is Trump has performed better in Pennsylvania than he is in Wisconsin, according to the polls, was because of, he got shot in this state, literally. And Butler County is next to Pittsburgh. And if he has high skyrocket turnout in Pittsburgh County, some of these stronghold Democratic counties, as well as Philadelphia as well, or, Harris does not have a performance in line with Joe Biden's 2020 in this state, then she's not going to win this state. And she avoided Josh Shapiro as her VP. Because she would think that if she picked Josh Shapiro, it would hurt her in Michigan because you had that large uncommitted vote obviously 100,000 people voted uncommitted, which is why I think Donald Trump actually has a chance in the state of Michigan. But at this point, it's, tilt blue. But that's, besides the point. I do think Trump is going to flip Erie County. But honestly, Nikki Haley in the primaries actually got a lot of that vote share, so I can really should worry Donald Trump, but still she endorsed him at the end of the day. And I also do think that Trump is going to flip Northampton County, only went to Biden by 0.7%. And he doesn't obviously have to flip Central County, but I do think if he has, better turnout, or at least, make somewhat improvements from his 2020 margin, similar to his 2016 victory in this state, in Central County, and only went to Biden by 4 to 5 points, I think he's going to win the state in 2024. And we go back to the polls. Pennsylvania right now has the best shot for Trump to win than any other Rust Belt state. Trump has a higher chance of winning Pennsylvania than he does in Michigan or Wisconsin. And especially when you compare Pennsylvania to Wisconsin, Wisconsin is supposed to be more redder than Pennsylvania, which the polls are showing the exact opposite, which is literally exactly why I think the polls are going to be way, way off. So yes, if the election's held today, I have Trump winning Pennsylvania by a tilt margin under a percentage point. It's going to be extremely close. So 297 electoral votes for the former president to Vice President Kamala Harris's 241. This is my map, and I think Trump would flip 5 states. Those are Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Those are the exact 5 states I think he will flip on election day. I can guarantee you that. So let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Do you think Trump would flip those 5 states that I just mentioned? One last final reminder is to subscribe. Click the bell as we are approaching 4,000 subscribers, and so you don't miss out on my content, obviously. Share this video. Don't forget we do have memberships. You can find links to that if you are interested in the comment section down below. That's pretty much it. Thank you, everyone, for watching.